everybody, it's Mike Giambattista. I'm the publisher of The Customer, and today I'm here with Will Stewart Jones from 3 Radical and Mark Schull, who is consultant at large to 3 Radical, among other people, but who's got a deep history in big data. And we wanted to have a conversation today to kind of unwrap and unpack the ideas behind permissioned customer data and what you actually do with that, because it's becoming a topic that's gaining some buzz amongst all of the other party data questions, like third party, second, first party, and now zero party data. What and where does fully permissioned customer data fit in the mix, and what do you do with it? So Mark, Will, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
My pleasure.
So I'm just going to throw this out there because both of you have your arms deep into the data world, especially as it relates to fully permissioned data. But and I've seen some of this stuff anecdotally, but you guys work in it daily. Can we talk a little bit about what it is, first of all, and then why it might be more useful to brands than traditionally sourced customer data? Mark, I'll let you go first, and Will, maybe you can chime in.
Sure. So it's important for a few reasons. Most of them aren't going to be really surprising to anybody. When it comes to the customer experience, you're talking things like relevancy, which always drive better results when you send me an email or a text message and I actually care about something, right? So on that level, I think it's more and more important. From a trust perspective, I think there's a growing importance we've seen over the last several years. Brands that align politically or ecologically with certain segments, certain customer segments, that helps create some additional value, and then that resonates better. But when it comes down towards some of the legislation that's coming down the pipeline and the restrictions on third-party data, the ability to not only capture it as a zero or first party wherein they know they're giving you the data or they are giving it to you directly, there's greater security in that for brands to be able to use that data. So there's a lot of things in play.
Will, from your perspective, arms deep, as I said, in the mechanics of how this, how do you see fully permissioned data differing from, say, traditionally sourced customer data?
Yeah, so I guess the thing that I would stress is about I don't know if you have this term in America, but we would say you're getting the data from the horse's mouth. So you're trying to take the guesswork out of where this data is coming from. So, what we provide at 3 Radical is a platform where we can effectively incentivize people for providing data. We quite often refer to it as earned data. And as I say, you're gaining that directly from the consumer. You're not gaining to a third party. You can be sure about where that data's come from, why it's been provided to you. And it's quite interesting. Funny enough, I had a bit of a run-in from somebody from an agency the other day. So the classic example we always talk about is we work with a dining chain called Z's in the UK, pizza chain, and they use our mechanics to capture data from people directly. So things like, have you got any special dietary requirements? Are you a vegan? Do you drink soft drinks? All that sort of good stuff. And the guy said to me, he sort of said in the call, he said, well, I can get that sort of data from the transactional data. And I said, well, not really. You might get it for a party of people at the table, but you don't know who specifically said they're a vegetarian or a vegan. And, by doing that, getting that data directly, as Mark said before, it's then about using that. So, classic for that organization, they're going to be sending out an offer on a Friday night, rather than a blanket image of a meat feast pizza. If people have got special requirements, you can tailor the comms accordingly. So that that's transactional data, but it applies to a lot of other data sources. You think about clickstream data, somebody going to a website and they're browsing around, maybe looking at mobile phones. You might know what handsets they're interested in or what type of contract, but you've got no context like, am I buying it for my kids because they're going to high school, or because my dad's in lockdown in the UK still? So by asking that data directly, you take the guesswork out of it, and you can the personalization you deliver off the back should be much more effective as a result.
Can we talk at all? And I don't know if you have specific examples off the top of your head where you have seen differences in engagement levels, and then maybe differences in the utility of those kinds of and that kind of data from your own personal experiences, because you both look at this from the same coin, different sides, I would say.
I mean, from a practical perspective, somebody like Zizi that I've just mentioned there, they'll quite often use this strategy for what they describe as digital hand raisers. So people that are in store, they're potentially not leaving any sort of digital footprint in terms of they're paying by cash, they haven't booked in advance. So they'll typically use these mechanics to get people to provide data while they're waiting for their food to appear. And then they've provided a little value exchange. So, maybe a digital scratch card, Wheel of Fortune, you win a voucher, you've had a fun experience, it's been memorable, your food's arrived. Brand in returns capture the name that they can market to going forwards. What we tend to find then is, certainly that in that case of that organization, when they start to then go out to that same audience with other similar experiences, so, now play this game, chance to win a holiday, for example, they'll typically see a click-through rate of maybe 20-21%, whereas their sort of standard weekly offers, particularly if they're not personalized, maybe getting sort of 7 or 8%. So that would be, I guess, a sort of classic example that we've directly been involved in.
Mark, you may have been behind the data that I saw. I saw your name attached to it, but we ran tests on our side, and it looked to me, if I interpreted this correctly, like engagement levels were astronomically higher in the tests we ran and the analysis you did. But maybe you can speak to that a little bit. What have you seen there in particular and elsewhere?
Well, with the ZZ data in particular, what we saw was when somebody started to engage with mechanics, which, this makes sense. You start to engage with a brand, there's a dialogue that goes back and forth, and there's perceived value that goes both ways. It extended the data for that brand 32 times. I think it was something like 10 days versus 330 days, somewhere around there, which, the factor I think was a little surprising, but the direction was absolutely not. If a brand can communicate with a customer or prospect in a way that they care about, that they're interested in, it creates that dialogue where we see with a lot of marketing, and we saw this in the email space when I worked there, where brands were talking to or at somebody, but even though they received data back, they didn't listen to the data. People would say things like, I'm not opening, I'm not clicking on anything you're sending me. And that wasn't necessarily looked at that way, where, when you create that value exchange where it's not just hard sell, here's a coupon, oh, here's a higher value coupon, there's something that occupies it. So, Will's example of people were using the mechanics while they're waiting for their food to arrive, it's, maybe it's the value is distracting the kids at the table. Maybe it's thinking about, should I get that appetizer or not? Well, we're on kind of a budget. Oh, I just got a free appetizer with my little app here. All of a sudden, that experience, they get something for giving something. And I think that creates a much better balance of relationship building and sales promotion that we don't necessarily see as often as we wish we would as consumers. And, there's always that pressure to sell now, increase revenue now, and especially with the economic turmoil around COVID, there's holy crap, how do we recover from the worst Q1 and Q2 we've seen in ages? And we're seeing more and more brands, when they don't have strong relationship, they've been commoditized in the mind of the consumer. And that's now, whatever the opposite of paying dividends is, it's hurting them, because all of a sudden the loyalty isn't there. It's a very transactional relationship. So what we see is the ability for a brand to extend and create real relationships is paying dividends. And there's definitely a niche of marketers that bought into it. They're reaping the benefits. And then there's other ones that are trying to figure out absolutely how to do that now. And the gamification stuff that Will works on every day definitely helps get them there.
In any case, I want to thank you both for this conversation. I think it's a conversation that can be extended, in so many different directions. I mean, we are all three in the midst of many, many conversations about customer data, its utility, its value, its cost, its management, its dangers, and the weight of it. And I think that platforms like 3Radical are starting to allow brands to approach customer data in much more transparent, honest, and open ways, and we're all about that. Look forward to where this goes next. But again, thank you both for the conversation, and hopefully we'll be talking about this again soon.